We are the majority of
I know that's right.
We need programs that work for us. As hard as we work for our state and families, hey, policymakers and politicians, it's time to make balance.
You all have a great one for the rest of the day.
You all
Enjoy your holiday.
so good to me. How long have you been?
And the United States
I'll be here
Postal
2 days.
Service
Okay.
is warning customers not to fall for
Yes, good to see
smishing
you in person.
scams.
Nice
Yeah.
to see you, Mom.
The
Take
practice
care
of
of yourself.
sending fake text
Happy
messages to
holidays.
mobile phones.
Happy
Asking
holidays.
users to click on a link to resolve and settle other issues with a pending package. John Hyatt with the USPS says the sender is trying to get your personal information.
Basically, criminals trying to obtain personally identifying information about a person, such as accounts, usernames, passwords, dates of birth, credit card number.
In 2020, the Internet Crime Complaint Center reported more than 240,000 victims of smishing, phishing, or other fraudulent schemes.
Tell Stephanie she left her computer. She left her
The
computer.
average person losing about $800. Smishing texts can be relentless this time of year, but Hyatt said you should never follow the message.
Sign up to receive text messages about it.
He says the USPS Informed Delivery Program is being used by millions of Americans to receive legitimate messages about packages that are on the way. Go online to USPS.com and click on Informed Delivery for more information. I'm Frida Ross, Arkansas News Service. Find our trust indicators at publicnewsservice.org.
This is for you, and written by David Nelson. He's not here today. There are 3 black poets, or 6 or maybe 100 in this town, but he's not here, and I didn't memorize it enough, so I have to read it. It's for you. Are you ready, black people?
So the phone should be. The phone.
All right, now listen.
Yeah. So it's working.
Are you ready, black people? Are you really ready? What is necessary to do? Are you ready, black man? Black woman, are you ready? Are you ready? Give me good now. Are you ready to kill if necessary? Is your mind ready? Is your body ready? Are you ready to do what you have to do to create life? Are you ready to smash white things? To burn buildings? Are you ready? Are you ready to build black things? Are you ready to give yourself, your love, your soul, your heart to create life? Are you ready to create out of nothing?
We can see you on camera.
I know.
Are you ready? Black man, black you, black woman, black everybody. Are you ready? Ready? Let me finish it. You gotta get your own self together, you see. You gotta ask yourself these questions. Are you ready to call the wrath of black gods? Black magic? To do your bidding? Are you ready to use whatever is necessary? Get the meeting scene. Like this. Yes, I'm ready. Yes, I'm ready. All right. Are you ready to prove? Are you ready to listen to all the beautiful black voices, the beautiful black feeling, the beautiful black waves moving in beautiful air? Are you ready to love black? Always loving black? Are you ready, black people? Are you ready? Are you ready to listen? Are you ready? Are you ready to feel? Are you ready to do? Black people, are you ready? And most important, you over there. Most important, are you ready to change? I said, are you ready to change? Are you ready to change yourself? You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. Are you ready to go inside yourself and change yourself? Almost through now. That plane kind of messed up the impact a little bit. Are you ready to change into a groovy black person? Are you really ready to change yourself? Turn yourself inside out, through and through, and make yourself a through and 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 through, real black person. Are you ready?
Yes, that's Nina Simone bringing us in hot with Are You Ready? We're going to be talking about that in just a minute. But first, I want to make sure that you realize and you recognize that you are listening to Community Voices right here at KABF 88.3 FM, where we are live in the studio at 2101 South Main Street in Little Rock, 72206. I am your host, the Reverend Doctor. You can call me Denise, and I am excited to have your co-host in the house, the Pastor Toney Orr. I want to make sure that he has an opportunity to greet you this morning, but I want to make sure that you know, above everything else, how grateful we are for your presence in this space. KABF 88.3 FM would not be alive were it not for you. We would not be able to bring you 24 hours, 7 days a week, information, education, enlightenment, and music that entertains and informs and transcends. We are glad that you make it possible. All of the different ways that you show up for us. For that, we are grateful. And we don't ever want you to forget that. And we don't want you to think that we take you for granted, because we do not. In fact, we always want to remind you that the phone lines are open when we are live in the studio. The phone lines are open, and that number is 501-433-0088. Get ready to call in with your comments as we continue to talk about Ask the Question on the Table. Are you ready? Nina Simone bringing us in. But before we get to anything else, let's hear from the pastor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everybody's having a great day so far and having a beautiful week. Just first of all, I just want to thank all of you who sent me birthday wishes yesterday.
It's your birthday.
So many phone calls, so many Facebook comments, and I just want to say thank you, and I love all of you, and just I really appreciate you taking the time just to appreciate me on yesterday. And I really, my heart just goes out and it just feel just overwhelmed. And I am looking forward to the conversation today. And just want to just remind everybody, thank you once again for donating and contributing to KABF 88.3 FM. You know the spiel. You can go to www.kabf.org and you can donate. And while you're there, click the button to become a sustaining monthly member of KABF. Your monthly contribution goes to the sustainability of KABF. We are heading into year 41. That the station's been on the air. Also, you can send a check of money over to 2101 South Main Street here in Little Rock, Arkansas, 72204. You can also come by that same address here in Little Rock and give your donation in person, or you can call 501-372-6119 and give your donation that way.
Okay, hold on just a minute. Caller, you're live on the air at KABF 88.3 FM. Caller, call us back. Let us see if we can't get this phone together. But actually, you had already hung up before we could get you online. I can't hear myself. And there's nothing happening on my board. And that board right there is stopped. So I don't know what's happening. We are, see. Hello. Say something. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you all hear us out there? Somebody send us a message. Send us a message online. Send me a message on my phone. Can you hear us out there? We want to make sure that you are hearing us right here at KABF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people. Want to make sure that everybody can hear us, that everybody is able to listen, because we are streaming globally all across the world, and this is a 100,000 watt platform. It is the only, no, it's not the only, it's one of only 12 community radio stations right here in the United States. And so we want to make sure that you are able to hear us as we broadcast on this morning. I can't hear through my hair. Somebody send me something and let me know if you can. Yeah, okay, so we're live on the air. Mm-hmm. Okay, but do you see this thing right here where it's just barely going? You just coming over here, and that thing right there is usually supposed to be moving, right?
It is moving. Talk.
Those green buttons at the top, they're not supposed to move.
Yeah.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah. See, when you speak, they move.
The green ones at the top are not moving. At the top up there, those green ones not moving.
Talking to the mic.
I'm talking into the mic right here. Okay, Lo said, Lo, can you hear us on the radio or can you hear us on online? Which one are you hearing? So we need you to, we would love for you to hear us both. Okay, well now I see the things moving. Okay, great. So I want to get us started today. We're talking about Nina Simone. Nina Simone is singing Are You Ready at the Harlem Cultural Festival, which happened in 1969, I want to say. I want to first give some shout outs before I get into it. I want to shout out to Mr. Kenneth Henderson, who is always, when I tell y'all that there is one community member who keeps me on my toes in terms of giving me resources, pointing me in a direction for more information, sending me videos, sending me clips, sending me songs, calling me on the phone and saying, look, you need to turn your TV to this station right now. It is Mr. Henderson, and I am so grateful for you for that, because I am always looking to grow and glow. I am always looking to learn more and more. I am a lifelong learner. I have no problem with it at all. And so I can't remember what day it was, but Mr. Henderson called and said, turn your TV on PBS right now. They're talking about Nina Simone. You need to hear this. And that's exactly what I did. And during that episode, when they were talking about Nina Simone, this song, Are You Ready, came up. And I said, oh my goodness, I don't think I've ever heard this before. Let me pull it. And so when I pulled it on YouTube, I saw it's a video, and the video was filmed at the Harlem Cultural Festival that I just mentioned from 1969. And that made me think of Deidre Levi, because Deidre Levi, I don't remember what day it was. I don't even remember what year it was. But one day she called me on the phone and she said, you need to get over here right now to my house and watch this documentary. And it was The Summer of Soul. And so it just feels like everything just kind of came full circle. Mr. Henderson said, watch this. Here's Nina Simone. Nina Simone is at the Harlem Cultural Festival that Deidre had taught me about through the documentary. And I'm just so grateful that you all are just as concerned about my intellectual growth as I am. So I want to say thank you for that. And one of the things that I do as a vocalist is when I'm singing a song, sometimes what helps to guide me through it is to think about one phrase and to focus on that one phrase and to ask myself, what are we really talking about here? What message are we really trying to deliver? Where is the inspiration that I can pull from to make sure that this sounds genuine and authentic when it is being sung? Deidre said, you're welcome. That's what we're here for. And so this song, Nina Simone is asking us, are you ready? Now, she specifically asks the question to Black folks. It is not a question just for Black folks. It's a question for everybody, because towards the end, she asks, are you ready to change? Are you ready to change who you are? Are you ready to become the person that you need to be through and through and through and through? That's a question for everybody. But because this is the Harlem Cultural Festival, it's a sea of Black folk. It's 300,000 people gathered in this park. What's it called? Morris Park? Mount Morris Park in Harlem. And so it's 300,000 people gathered in this space, and the majority of them, the vast majority of them are Black. So she's speaking directly to her audience. But the phrase that got me in this particular song that she's singing, that she said was written by David Nelson, is she asks, are you ready to smash white things? That's what she asks. Are you ready to smash white things? And on its face, people I can see people getting upset. Oh, she promoting violence. But it's just like the word Sawubona. Sawubona on its face is simply a greeting. It's an invitation for you to receive me with a hello, with a namaste, with something that says, oh, okay, I see you. But when you dig deeper, the Sawubona asks you to ask yourself, are you willing to live in the spirit of oneness with me? Are you willing to embrace me? Are you willing to celebrate me? Are you willing to honor me? Are you willing to coexist with me in a way that allows both of us to be free? So on its face, it says one thing to you, but when you spend a little time with it, you learn something else. And so she asked the question, are you ready to smash things? So I can see people thinking she's talking about a riot, she's talking about a fight, but no, that may be, I'm not gonna say that's not one way of interpreting it. It absolutely is. But it's also asking us, are we willing to smash whiteness as a system? Are we willing to smash the white things of the system of white inhumanity? Are we willing to smash the constructs? Are we willing to smash the conditioning, the programming, the indoctrination? Are we willing to smash those white things? And that's what I want to focus on today. I'm not asking anybody to go throw a brick. Oh, and let me just be careful about it. Let me just be clear about this. Usually when there's a riot, it be white folks that come into the neighborhood and start the riot, and then the Black folks get the blame for it. So let's put that on the table too. But that's not what we're talking about. We want to make sure that when I say smash, when she says, can you smash white things? I want to talk about it in the context of dismantling these systems of oppression and domination and power and exclusion and war that are plaguing us to this day. And that's the question that she asks us to consider when she says, are you ready? She asked a whole bunch of questions, but are you ready to smash white things? And that's Nina Simone. We're sourcing our conversation in that song from the summer. Oh, you can see it. Oh, you can still see the summers. It's called Summer of Soul. You can watch it on, I only found it on Disney Plus, y'all. I don't know where else you can find it, but I just so happened to have Disney Plus because I was trying to watch Elements 2 or something I was trying to watch. And so that's where, it's still available for you to watch, where you see the Harlem Cultural Festival, which has been likened to Woodstock. It happened in the same year. It happened 100 or so miles away, but it is available for you to watch. I want to, okay, so that's the song, Are You Ready by Nina Simone. And here is our tidbit for today. On December 19th, I want to go back to the 19th because I'm always looking to find the tidbit that I think best helps us move our conversation forward. So I'm not really concerned about what day it is. I'm concerned about the message that it sends. So on December 19th in 1865, South Carolina passes a law requiring Black servants to enter into labor contracts with white masters, work from dawn to dusk, and maintain a polite demeanor. On December 19th in 1865, South Carolina passes a law requiring Black servants to enter into labor contracts with white masters, work from dawn to dusk, and maintain a polite demeanor. And these are emancipated Black folks. These are Black folks who have been freed through the Emancipation Proclamation, but they are still having to work. They still have to work. And now they got to find work that they can be paid for so that they can live. And so many of them find themselves still on the same land with the people who used to own them, now trying to enter into a relationship with on a different level. Like, I'm not your property anymore. Like, you can call me an employee if you want, but I'm not your property. But then this law says, no, we want to continue to maintain this structure where you know that you are inferior to us. So we're going to call you servants, and we're going to demand that you call us master. That's the only way you're going to enter into this contract where we are going to offer you some kind of compensation for your work. And so South Carolina passes this law that requires Black people to be considered servants and for them to refer to their employers, the people that they are having this work relationship with. I'm trying to use my words carefully because I don't want to pretend like it's an equal working relationship, right? They're having to call these people master. And so I want us to talk about that and think about that in the terms of asking ourselves, do we want to, are you ready to smash white things? Let me pause for a moment to see if Tony has something to, okay. So are we ready to smash white things? So as I'm reading this, again, those of you who have the calendar, all you have is what I read to you. That's the tidbit. Those of you who sign up for email, when you get the email message every day, there is much more to the story, and you get a broader picture of what is happening. And so the part of this, so when we're talking about this 1865, the part of it that really got to me was when it says that the Black folks had to work from dusk until dawn. And so you have to ask yourself, what are those hours? How many hours is from dusk until dawn? So basically we're talking about 12 hours a day. So you got to work 12 hours a day from dusk until dawn. And so I just wanted to dig. It was something about that dusk until dawn that I could not stop. It just kept playing over in my head repeatedly until and the way that God works with me is if there's something God is trying to tell me, it feels like somebody tapping me on my shoulder incessantly, just continuing to tap. And you know when somebody's tapping you on your shoulder, they won't stop. It irritates you. It annoys you until you pay attention to it. What do you want? That's how it feels when God is trying to tell me something. I'm talking about Denise. And so it's like this constant tap from dusk to dawn, from dusk to dawn, from dusk. I'm like, what is it that you're trying to tell me about this dusk to dawn? And when I stopped to center myself in that question, the scripture that came up in my mind was from Psalm 113, focused on verse 3, but I actually want to read all 3 verses to you. First, let me say this. As a cradle Christian, a person who was born into the Christian religion, when I was growing up, the only Bible translation that we used was the King James Version. I was forced to go to church every single Sunday, and I did not mind it at all because at the time I didn't think about it as a forcing. Well, it was forcing in terms of everybody in this house got to go, but it wasn't a forcing in terms of you got to learn Christianity. We had to go to church. We had to be in church. We had to learn the Bible verses. We had to memorize. I had to participate in all of those things, but it just felt like the normal routine of our family. And so in going to church constantly every single week and being as active as I was, I learned a lot lot of verses from the Bible, and I learned all of them in the King James Version. So even now, 52 years later, if something comes up in my spirit, it's going to come up in the King James Version. I know that there are plenty of translations that give us an opportunity to interpret it in a different way, but when it comes up for me initially, it's the King James Version. And that's the only reason I want to read it to you from the King James Version. I am not suggesting that that is the version anybody should use. In fact, I don't think anybody should even be using the King James Version in this day and age, but that's another conversation for another day. But I want you to hear these words from Psalm 113, verses 1 through 3 from the King James Version of the Bible. This is what came up for me as I was wrestling with that phrase, from dusk to dawn. Psalm 113, praise ye the Lord. Praise, O ye servants of the Lord. Praise the name of the Lord. Blessed be the name of the Lord from this time forth and forevermore. From the rising of the sun unto the going down of the same, the Lord's name is to be praised. I want to read verse 3 again. From the rising of the sun to the going down of the same, the Lord's name is to be praised. And so when I'm thinking about from dusk to dawn, and I'm thinking about how now in this relationship with the person who you are still on the plantation with, these emancipated Black folks are now being referred to as servants, and they have to work from dusk to dawn, which means before the sun rises to after the sun sets, from the rising of the sun to the going down of the same. I'm reading Psalm 113, and at the beginning it says, praise ye the Lord, praise, O ye servants of the Lord. And then it says in verse 3, from the rising of the sun to the going down of the same, the name of the Lord is to be praised. You heard me throw in worthy right there, because I do have to admit that I have prayed that, I have said that as a pastor, I have prayed that as a prayer warrior. I have from the rising of the sun to the going down of the same, the name of the Lord is worthy to be praised. I've said that. But now thinking about it in this context, when Lena Simone asks us, are we ready to smash white things? Are we ready to revisit these white things that we have become so familiar with, that we get into without thinking about, to the point where we stop and realize, wait a minute. Like, what are we saying right now? Because I can see how one person like me could argue that Psalm 113 is racist. I could argue that based on what I just shared with you about the EJI tidbit, and based on what Nina Simone is asking us to think about. And so when we are asking about smashing white things today, that's what I'm asking us to do. Revisit what we have come to know as familiar and ask ourselves, is there a different way that we can see this? And is there a way that we can see this that will free us up from the ways that we have been looking at it, so that we can liberate ourselves? And that is what I wanted to start with. And then I want to tell you how I got there.
Yeah, I think one thing that when you talk about the context of certain things, and so first of all, just listening to this law, it makes me, think about, as whoever whatever legislators decide to put this law into effect, even they don't know what they were saying or what they were doing. Because if you say you are working dusk to dawn, that means you're working at night. Dusk is evening.
Before the sun comes up.
Dusk is evening. And then dawn is when the sun comes. So you want these servants to work at night. So to me, that's the first thing that caught my mind. It's that, that does not make any sense. If you say you want to work from dawn to dusk, that's one thing. But so you want them to work at night, which doesn't make any sense. But it also lets me know that they didn't even know what they were doing. And so a lot of times when we start to look at how things are put in place, they're put in place. And because you had no voice to question how these things are put in place, you just go along with it. And I do agree with you, Denise, that it comes a point in time where you have to stop and you have to revisit. So why am I doing something that doesn't make sense to begin with. So if it doesn't make sense now, it didn't make sense then. So I've been doing this all this time. So now I need to make a change, or I need to see if this is beneficial to me.
Yeah, and just so that I can be fair, and I want to honor the lived experiences of my ancestors. In their situation and in their context, they were not able to at all times say, listen, this doesn't make any sense and I'm not going to do that. That just wasn't the reality for them. However, we still carry their cells in our bodies. And so we now, to honor them, to celebrate them, to remember them, we have a responsibility to say that now I can redeem your experiences. I can redeem the humiliation that you felt. I can redeem that because now I am able to say, let me tell you what I'm not going to do. So this is what we have to do now. We have to be ready. As Nina Simone asked, are you ready? Are you ready to do things differently? Are you ready to change? Are you ready to smash this white construction of inhumanity? Are you ready to do that? And I have to call myself out. This conversation is about me having to call myself out, because I'm not embarrassed about it. I'm just disappointed in myself because I allowed it to happen, and it happened more than once. And so anybody who knows me, if you know me as a person in my inner circle, you know that I love books. You know that I am always surrounded by books. I am always looking for books. I am always reading a book. I'm always carrying a book. I'm always responding to a book. I'm always interacting with a book. Books are my friends. They are my companions. I love them so much. And so when something happens, or when I see something especially if it's a book about a Black person, I immediately say, oh my goodness, I need that book on my shelf. So there are 2 books that ended up on my shelf because I did not do the work that I always challenge you all to do. So that's why I'm calling myself out. I come on here, I have this conversation, I ask you, are you asking the real questions? I'm asking you, are you digging deeper? I'm asking you, are you doing your homework? I'm asking you, are you doing your research? That's what I'm asking you. And when I started reading both of these books, I had to say, girl, you ain't done your own due diligence. So you need to step back for just a moment, pump your brakes, and look at yourself in the mirror. And so it happened with 2 books. One of the books is it's called The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace. I have a friend named Tamara. Tamara is, she's another person who is always sending me resources. And she shot me this link to Robert Peace. It's a documentary that's on Netflix right now. It's called Raw Peace. That's the name of it. And when I was about to go to Rome, I was looking for a book to take with me so that I could read, on the plane, in the Airbnb, when I had some downtime. And as I was perusing my bookshelf, I got so many books, y'all, that I don't know which books I have. I'll just be honest with you. Sometimes I end up with 2 and 3 of the same books because I don't always remember, and I'll buy them again. And so I was perusing my bookshelves, and I found this book called The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace. I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't even know it was a book about his life. I just watched the documentary because Tam sent it to me, and when she sent it to me, it must be interesting. So I watched it, and it's about this young Black man who is brilliant. I mean, well, all Black people are brilliant, but he's brilliant in a way that that's rare. He has a beautiful mind kind of brilliance to him, and he goes to Yale. He's from a low income area, and he's from the neighborhood that people call the quote unquote hood. And he ends up at Yale, and so he's having this experience. But then all the while that he's at Yale having this experience, his father is wrongly incarcerated. And so he's torn between these 2 worlds of trying to make sure that he lives into his brilliance of doing the work to change the world, especially as it relates to cancer research and things like that. But also having to struggle with the fact that his daddy is incarcerated, and he's the only one. His daddy makes him feel like he's the only one that can help his father. So he is struggling. He's struggling because he wants to live his life at the university away from all of the pressures of his home life, but he can't leave his home life completely because his father and his mother are there. Like, he's just struggling. He ends up getting killed on the street. And so the conversation that Tamara and I were having was, as a Black person, is it even possible for you to escape this system of white inhumanity? Like, no matter how brilliant you are, no matter how bold you are, no matter how good you are, no matter what you do, you still end up enthralled in these systems. And so that's the conversation we were having. So I was super excited to read this book when I found it on my shelf. Now, let me also say that usually if I know there's a book, I refuse to watch the movie until I read the book, because the movies never do the book justice. But in this case, it is the other way around as far as I'm concerned. And I just happened to watch the documentary first. But I started reading The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace without doing any homework. I did not ask myself who wrote it. I did not ask myself why they wrote it. I did not dig into anything. I just saw the name, I was interested, and I started reading. But once I started reading, I had to stop myself and say, wait a minute. Is this, hold on just a minute. I just want to read from you on page 11. I didn't even get, this is on page 11. This is what it says. Newark and the Oranges were not the places Jackie had known as a child. During the 1970s, her 20s, she'd been vaguely aware of the things people talked about when they talked about Newark. There were the riots of July 1967, incited by the alleged brutality inflicted on a black cab driver by white policemen, 5 days of burning, looting, sniper fire, and rage, at the end of which 26 people were dead, more than 700 were injured, 1,500 were arrested, and the texture of the city was changed forever. On one of those nights, Jackie and her girlfriends had ventured toward the city. They wanted to see for themselves what was going on, like a party they would regret missing. When I read that, I said, wait, I think I need to read this again, because maybe I'm being too sensitive. But when he said right here, there were the riots of July 1967 incited by the alleged brutality. That word alleged means that we're really not sure that the white people did this to the black man. They just saying that they did it, but we're not really sure. And I'm thinking, from the black experience, ain't no way it was alleged. We know what the white people did. What you mean alleged? So I was already, my alarm, I had a dog mama like, oh. And then when he goes on to say that Jackie, who in this case is Rob Peace's mother, played by Mary J. Blige in the film, when he goes on to say that she and her friends ventured down to see what was going on in the riots, like a party they didn't want to miss. I'm like, who in the black experience, after knowing somebody was unjustly, their body was desecrated unjustly in public by police officers, because we know the system of white law enforcement in our community. When we think about that happens to this body, and then it is mangled and it is just dehumanized, and then there's a riot that ensues because people are angry. And I don't know if it was Dr. King, but somebody said that that's what a riot is. It's the voice of those who have been silenced. And so here it is, a riot, and you said they went because it's like a party they didn't want to miss. That made me stop for a moment and say, Denise, who wrote this book? And so I did. I had to look it up, and I found out that it was a white man that wrote the book. And it's not that white people can't write the book, because Without Sanctuary is by far the most poignant display of black lived experience as it relates to lynching that I have found in I don't know how long, again, thanks to Mr. Henderson, and it was compiled by a white man. So I'm not saying white people can't write about black experiences, but you got to be careful when you try to, because if you don't know your stuff, if you have not researched, if you have not done your work, if you're not in right relationship, if you don't know anything really at the end of the day, then you shouldn't be putting pen to paper about somebody else's experience. And so once I had to stop reading that, and I realized I had not done my homework, because if I had done the homework and realized that this was the young man who was Rob Peace's, he was his roommate in college, he just assumed that because he was his roommate, he knew enough to write the story. And that's not the case. It takes more than that. So I stopped reading The Short and Tragic Life of Rob Peace. And then I said, I know what, let me go peruse my shelves again. I'm gonna pick up something else, because I need to read something. I always need to read something. And I found this book, I Put a Spell on You, the autobiography of Nina Simone. Now, remember, I just had this conversation with Mr. Henderson. I just watched this documentary. I just had the revisiting of Summer of Soul that I watched with Deidre. And so I got Nina Simone on my brain. So when I saw this, I'm like, okay, I'm getting ready to read it. And when I tell you that I did not even get past the first page, I mean, this is not even, we haven't even gotten into the first chapter yet. This is just the first page. You know, you kind of set the tone of the book. You're going to do the foreword. You're going to give your introduction. I get to this page, and I want you to hear what he says about in this book. He says the term describes her militant presence in the civil rights movement. Oh, wait, I need to start right here. Let me see where I need to start. Okay, so he's talking. This is about Nina Simone. He's asking herself how she wants to be classified. What genre of music does she think her music should be classified as? And so people were like, she should be a jazz. They call her a jazz singer. And this is her response. This is what it says in the book. She had a different idea. If I had to be called something, it should have been a folk singer because there was more folk and blues than jazz in my playing. Maybe that's true of her piano playing, but her singing, not her playing, defined her. Mainly it defined her as Nina Simone, sui generis. That's what he writes. Sui generis. And what does that mean? It means in a class by herself, one of its own kind. But if you need a label, try this one, freedom singer. This is the author writing. The term describes her militant presence in the civil rights movement of the 1960s and the way that she sang, both within and without the limits of predictable cadence and melody. More than that, it describes what she sought. Like her good friends James Baldwin and Lorraine Hansberry, Nina Simone made art about wanting to live like a free person. This certainly did not mean to live or to sing like a white person, or for that matter, an American. It meant living and singing like a person who not only counted on the promise, but lived in the actuality of the American dream. I said, what? Wait, y'all got to hear this right here. He says, this certainly didn't mean to live or to sing like a white person, or for that matter, an American. It meant living and singing like a person who not only counted on the promise, but lived in the actuality of the American dream. What black person do you know lives in the actuality of the American dream? Well, wait, which black person was the American dream even designed? The American dream was not even designed for black folks. It's not for black folks. You can't achieve it as a black person. It's not possible. You cannot realize it. So for this man to say, and I'm reading this, for this man to say that Nina Simone, oh my goodness, she was great. Look at her melody. Look at her cadence. She's this, she's that. She's in a class all of her own. Let's give her a Latin word, sui generis. Let's use that word. And then say she was trying to live in the actuality of the American dream. That made me stop and say, girl, who wrote this book? And so when I went to see who wrote the book, it was a white man. And I said, well, I want to know, was he ever in relationship with Nina? Like, what's going on right here? Like, I'm not understanding. And so I had to stop myself and say, Denise, so here are two books that you spent your money on, you spent your time on, you invested your energy in, because you're trying to get information without considering the source, without asking yourself, who are you depending on to give you the information that's going to free you? And that's the question we have to ask ourselves when we're thinking about Nina Simone posing to us, are you ready? Can we possibly be ready for change? Can we possibly be ready for liberation if we're sourcing our data collection, if we're sourcing our information gathering in white folks that don't know nothing about our lives? Is it possible?
There's a lot to unpack in those two scenarios. You know, one thing, going to talk about Nina Simone and the book, what was said, until Black people open up their minds. There are a lot of Black people who believe, who are convinced, or who are tricked, or however you want to put it, into believing that there is this idea of the American dream. I can achieve these things, but we've talked about this before. It's through the gaze of white eyes that this so-called American dream is out there for us. And it's out there, like other people who come to this country and try to realize this American dream. And for Black people, the American dream is the American nightmare. But there are those, who believe that they can achieve it. And you just look at some of the figures, Black figures who had a downfall because they believed that they would be part of this American dream. And on the book Raw Peace, and when it talks about the party, and I'm going to say this from my lived experience, from growing up in the so-called hood, you know, there were a lot of people, a lot of Black people, who viewed, you know, when it said that, like going to a party you can't miss. When the Rodney King riots hit, even when the George Floyd riots started in Chicago, and I just happened to be there towards the end of it. I was visiting relatives, and every day, every night, you know, around 3 o'clock in the morning, in the neighborhood I live, there would be these line of cars from people who had went. They didn't care about, really, they didn't care about George Floyd. They didn't care about the injustice. They didn't care about how white inhumanity was treating Black folks. They didn't care. What they cared about was, here's the opportunity, or they said, the lick I've been waiting on. Let me go down to Michigan Avenue. Let me go down to the high-end stores. I'm going to take, you know, that's the party. Almost. We're not going to miss this. We're not going to miss this. We're going to go. We're going to take. We're going to come back. And we're going to make money off this situation. And there are a lot of Black people who look at it that way. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. I'm not saying that, you know, they need to be more conscious. I'm not saying any of that. What I'm saying is that that's the way there are some people in the hood, or in, you know, there's Black people who look at it like this. And so in that story, I can understand what the writer. Now, granted, it's very difficult for me to get into a white person talking about what's going on in the hood, because you can only imagine. You can take all the stories you want, but if you don't know what it is to be oppressed, you don't know what it is to live like that, then it's hard for me to get into you writing about, you know, the hood. But like I said, from my experiences and from a lot of other experience of Black people, that's what the riots were all about. You know, it wasn't about we rising up. It wasn't about that we're you know, we're fighting back against injustice. It's about, here's an opportunity for me to get something.
And here with you saying that, you give me this opportunity to say, first of all, I think that was so unhelpful for moving this conversation forward, but I'm gonna see if I can't use it to move this conversation. Let me finish. I did not say anything while you were talking. I did not say anything while you were talking. And you have an opportunity to say something else. And so what happens, what my experience is, since you're talking about your experience, what my experience is when you have a Black person who wants to elevate the conversation, who wants to raise the conversation up so that we are operating on higher vibration, who wants to raise the level of consciousness about what it means to be Black in a way that does not keep us rooted and grounded in the stereotypes and the lived experiences of a certain population of Black folks that the media supports, that the media promotes. Everybody in the world already knows what the hood is like, because we celebrate it in our music, we celebrate it in works of art, we celebrate it on TV, we celebrate it in the videos, we celebrate nothing but Black, not even mediocrity, Black lowness of life. That's what we celebrate. So people already know that. So when you have a person who comes along and says, let's set this in a different context, you got somebody like you that comes back and says, wait a minute, but remember, there are Black people like that. We already know that. We see it all the time. Let's focus on the fact that being Black is not a monolith. Let's focus on the fact that we don't have to be like that. Let's focus on the fact that even though we can understand their situation because that's their circumstances, but all of y'all are living in doing the same thing, but there's another way of living, there's another way of being, there's another way of perceiving, there's another way of growing, there's another way. And it was also active in Chicago. It just wasn't active where you newer. And so Nina Simone is asking us, are you ready to change? Are you ready to get yourself together so that you will be different through and through and through and through and through? Are you ready, Black man or Black woman? Are you ready? And that's my question. Are you ready to say, look, regardless of what used to happen, regardless of what they say about us, regardless of what they show about us, it is possible for us to smash this whiteness and realize that they ain't doing nothing but using us like I felt like you just got used. But I mean, that's just me, and you can respond to that.
Oh, ain't nothing for me to say.
You were about to say something a few minutes ago?
I ain't got nothing to say. I ain't got nothing to say.
Because I said, let me talk because I let you
I ain't
talk.
got nothing to say. What is there to say?
But you were getting ready to say something.
What is there to say? Because here's where it becomes an issue with me, is that when the conversation starts about, yes, I would love to see Black consciousness. I would love to see Black people move past this. I would love to see Black people stand up and fight and look at the injustice. I would love to see Black people change the system. I would love to do that. But also, I have to look on both sides, because if you have people who have this mentality, is this the way I look at this? This the way I look at that. Now what you're going to do is say, you know what? Forget about those Black people over here who have that mentality. Forget about those Black people who live like this. Forget about those. We're not talking about them. We know about them. We don't care about them. We just want to talk about the Black people who want to move forward. Well, you can't do that. You got to incorporate all, because if you can't get both sides to balance out, we're gonna stay in the same boat that we in.
Yeah, so let me be clear. Not once did I say that we don't care about those people. Not once did I say that. Let me be clear. Not once did I say that their lived experiences are not worthy of conversation. Not once did I say either of those things. What I said was, if we're going to have a conversation where we're talking about moving forward, in order to move forward, you do have to have a change of mind. So let's talk about, as Nina Simone is asking us, are you ready? Are you ready to move forward? Which means that you got to revisit yourself. Are you ready to do that work? You just said in your story that the very people you are talking about, were not interested in that story. They're not, you said it. They're not interested in raising the level of consciousness. They're not interested in white inhumanity. They're not interested in anything but hitting a lick. That's what you said. So because those people are only interested in that, they're not a part of this conversation. That doesn't mean they're not worthy. That doesn't mean I don't celebrate their lives. It doesn't mean that I don't embrace them, but they're not a part of this conversation. So to take the conversation and then center them in it, people you said yourself not ready for the conversation, that's what I'm pushing back on.
Okay.
Here's Deidre. Let's see what she says. Tony, you are wrong on this one. We can have that conversation later. Tony, you are wrong on this one. We can have that conversation later. And so I just want to be clear about that. I absolutely agree that every person should be engaged in a conversation. And so I say to people that you should talk to everybody. You should try to have a conversation with everybody. But I also say this, that because it is important for you to protect your own peace, because it is important for you to guard your own mind, it doesn't take long in some conversations for you to realize that this is going to be fruitless, that this is not going to move us forward. In fact, it may move us backward. And so some people you are in conversation with, you have to cut the conversation off. You have to say, okay, we don't have to talk about this. We can move on, the end on that. My friend Tamara and I, when we feel like the conversation is about to be fruitless, we have this singing bowl, and the singing bowl has a little thing that you hit it with. And so we will walk over to the singing bowl and we'll ring the bowl, which means we need to reset this space, because we need to bring ourselves back to our center so that we can have a conversation that we do believe will liberate us, because this one will not. And so I do want to make sure that we do that we realize that some conversations simply are not worth having with your friends. So even if it's your family, when you realize that a person is not in the space, now that does not mean sever the relationship. That does not mean say I'm never, ever, ever, ever going to talk to them again. That means we have to figure out a way. Or we also have to say, some folks don't want to be free. Some folks are not trying to be liberated. Some folks want to stay where they are. Some people are complicit and they're all right about it. Some people are enslaved and they're all right about it. And you have every right to live your life the way you want to live it. I'm not going to judge you. This is a judgment-free zone. The only thing I ever ask is if you know you a slave, if you know you a coon, then just tell me up front. That way I won't waste my time, because I am going to extend the conversation to every single person and see who's willing to go along along with it. And in that, it goes back to Nina Simone. I said at the beginning, she talks particularly to Black folks because this is the Harlem Cultural Festival, which was designed for Black folks. And it was designed so that we could bring Black folks together to have this conversation after what was going on in that particular time. And so it's predominantly, that's what I said, by and large, these are Black people, but there were white people too. There were white people in there. I'm sure there were other populations of folks, but you can see, just by how they teach us to just look at people and think we know who they are. You can look and see that there are people that folks call white in the sea of faces with the Black folks. And I've said that before, and I will say it again. I'm looking to build a movement. I'm looking to get on a movement that's already being built, because I'm not trying to act like it started with me. I'm trying to continue to build a movement, continue to move us forward toward collective liberation with anybody who wants to move. If you are conscious enough to understand that this way of living is not sustainable, this way of living under this system of white inhumanity, this way of living of celebrating and worshiping whiteness, we cannot continue to do that. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your identities are. I don't care about your sexuality. I don't care about your gender identity. I don't care about your ethnicity. I don't care about your immigration status. I don't care about your gender. I don't care about your race. I don't care about any of that. If you are ready to move, if you can answer Nina Simone when she says, are you ready? Are you ready to smash white things? If you can say yes to that, then I'm ready to build. And I'm serious about that, because I do not believe that every Black person is going to get on board. I just don't believe it. And I'm not waiting for it. It's not even my expectation. You done shut down, y'all.
No, I ain't shut down. I just don't have anything to say. I ain't shut down at all. It's just nothing to say. It's just nothing to say.
So for those of you who are in the holidays, this is probably an example of what's going to happen around the table, right? Everybody's laughing and giggling. Everybody glad to be in the number. Everybody come in smiling. And then the conversation doesn't go the way that they want it to go. And then they'll say, oh, okay, I got to figure out, okay. Well, now this is not working for me. Okay. And that's going to happen. So then the question that we have to ask ourselves is, when we feel, it doesn't matter what the other person is doing. When we feel in our bodies that we have disconnected from our loved one, from our friend, from our neighbor, when we feel it in our bodies, then we have to ask ourselves, what are we going to do? And many of us will take the position of saying, I don't care, it ain't my fault. That's what we take a position of. But in the spirit of Sawubona, in the spirit of oneness, where we ask each other to live together in the spirit of oneness, when we ask each other to celebrate and embrace the whole of who the other person is, then we've got to figure out, how do we manage everybody's emotions so that everybody feels like you are absolutely a part of this space. You are absolutely welcome. If you need to take a breather, that's fine. If I need to take a breather, that's fine. But we don't want to lose sight of the fact that we are inextricably linked. There's nothing we can do to separate ourselves. We don't want any arguments to separate us. We don't want any misunderstandings to separate us. We certainly don't want any physical altercations to separate us. We got to figure out, how do we stay connected even when the conversations get difficult? Because I know for those of you who are, especially those my friends in the LGBTQIA plus community, people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, asexual, agender plus, I know that for some of you, the stories that I have heard, you aren't even allowed to go to your families for holidays. Or if you are allowed to go, you cannot bring your partner, right? Because your family does not allow and does not make room for the whole of who you are. So that means that sometimes for some people, the holidays are depressing. The holidays are painful. The holidays are traumatic. And it is my hope and it is my prayer that somebody will see you this holiday. That Pat Ward said on her last show that she wants it to be a miracle, somebody to experience a miracle. And I told her I believe that we are the miracles. So I pray that you have a miracle this holiday season that sees you, a person that sees you, that honors you and lets you know how worthy you are, how valuable you are, and how loved you are, just because you are human and just because you are divine. And I hope that happens for you and for all people during this holiday season. Well, I see your girl Lola is standing at the door ready to come in for 2 hours of jazz. Do not touch that dial. You want to hear every song she's about to play. And I'm going to get us started still with Nina Simone. I'm gonna use, I Put a Spell on You, since that was the name of the book that I read from. I Put a Spell on You by Nina Simone. Here comes your girl Lola. Don't touch that dial.
Tone